Have you ever looked around and felt like the world is losing its mind? Like people are screaming without knowing why, obeying without thinking, raging without reason. You're not imagining it. What we're witnessing isn't just cultural confusion, political chaos, or economics address. It's something far deeper. It's the collapse of shared sanity. It's mass psychosis. And if we don't understand how this happens, if we don't see how entire civilizations can descend into madness, then we'll be swept away by it too. Let me take you back, not to a headline or a hashtag, but to the root of all this. Because mass psychosis doesn't begin with madness out there. It begins with fear inside you, inside me, inside all of us. In times of uncertainty, when the world feels chaotic, when people feel isolated, confused, powerless, something ancient stirs in the human psyche. We crave order, we crave meaning, and we'll accept illusions, no matter how absurd, if they promise to end the anxiety. That's when the trap begins. First, fear isolates you. It separates you from others, from yourself, from truth. Then propaganda floods in, not just in the form of slogans or speeches, but through repetition, images, peer pressure, and subtle cues. Suddenly up feels like down. Freedom feels dangerous, and compliance feels virtuous. It's not because people are stupid, it's because they're scared. And fear makes the mind cling to anything that feels certain, even if it's a lie. Think of the Milgram experiment. Participants were told to administer electric shocks to strangers, simply because an authority figure told them to. Many obeyed, despite the screams. Now ask yourself, why? Because authority gives people a sense of safety. Because disobeying felt more frightening than harming someone else. Because once fear rewires the brain, morality takes a back seat to survival. This is how ordinary people become instruments of insanity. Not because they're evil, but because they're terrified. Now imagine that fear spreading from person to person, from family to community, from screen to screen, amplified by algorithms, directed by the powerful, swallowed by the masses. What do you get? You get a society where truth is whatever the loudest voice says it is, where dissent equals danger, where silence becomes complicity, and where the mentally ill believe they are the sane ones. This isn't fiction, it's history. The Salem witch trials, Nazi Germany, Mao's Cultural Revolution. Every single time, it started with fear and ended in madness. But here's the terrifying part. Mass psychosis doesn't feel like insanity when you're in it. It feels normal, rational, justified, even righteous. That's the true horror. Because when the majority loses its mind, sanity becomes rebellion, and rebels become enemies. So how do you know you're not already infected? Ask yourself, have I accepted things that once seemed unthinkable? Have I silenced my doubts to avoid conflict? Do I feel anxious when I speak my truth, even in private? If so, it's time to wake up. Because the first step to resisting mass psychosis is seeing that it's already here. So how exactly does mass psychosis unfold? It often follows 5 chilling stages. 1, the triggering crisis. A war, a pandemic, an economic collapse. Anything that shakes the foundation of normal life. This crisis floods people with uncertainty, fear, and isolation. The propaganda surge. Voices of authority swoop in to provide simple explanations and solutions. But those solutions often require blind obedience, scapegoating, and surrender of personal freedom. Third group conformity. Once a critical mass buys into the new narrative, social pressure does the rest. People who resist are mocked, punished, or erased, and many others go silent. Not because they agree, but because they're afraid. 4. The loss of self. As the collective madness grows, individuals abandon critical thinking. They outsource morality to the mob. They stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking, "Will this keep me safe?" 5. The institutionalization of insanity. Eventually, the madness gets written into laws, policies, and norms. It becomes systemic, and by then, it feels too big to challenge. But here's what they don't tell you. Mass psychosis doesn't end when the mob wins. It ends when enough individuals reclaim their minds. Think of Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Auschwitz, surrounded by unspeakable evil. Yet he chose every day to remain mentally free. He said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That's the secret. Your mind is the last frontier of freedom. And no mob, no dictator, no algorithm can take it, unless you give it away." So how do you fight mass psychosis? Not by yelling louder, not by attacking those who are lost, but by becoming unshakably sane. Here's how. 1. Reconnect with reality. Turn off the noise. Step outside. Observe the world without commentary. Ask yourself what you actually see, not what you've been told to see. 2. Questions everything, even yourself. If an idea feels comforting, ask why. If a belief makes you feel superior, examine it. Truth doesn't fear questions. Lies do. 3. Speak up, but not with rage. Speak with clarity, with calm, with compassion, because your courage gives others permission to find their own. 4. Find your tribe. You are not alone. There are others who still think, feel, question, and hope. Find them. Build with them. Stand with them. 5. Anchor your mind in something timeless. Philosophy, faith, nature. Anything that reminds you that truth isn't invented. It's discovered. In a world gone mad, staying sane is an act of revolution. But it's not just about saving yourself. It's about being a lighthouse for others lost at sea. Because one steady mind, one clear voice, one unbroken soul can become the spark that starts the awakening. So I'll ask you again, have you noticed the world losing its mind? Then maybe, just maybe, it's your time to help it remember. Don't go mad with the world. Be the reason it heals. But here's the dangerous part. Once people are caught in mass psychosis, they don't know they're in it. They see the chaos outside and believe the world has gone mad. But not them. They think their fear, their rage, their obsession is rational. They'll scream at you for not being afraid enough. They'll cut you off because you refuse to see the truth they've swallowed whole. That's how deep this spell goes. History whispers warnings in the dark. Take the Salem witch trials. A handful of girls screamed about witches, and an entire town followed them into a frenzy. Ordinary people, mothers, fathers, preachers, became executioners. Not because they were evil, but because they were possessed by fear wrapped in the illusion of righteousness. Fear always disguises itself as virtue. The Inquisition, they weren't hunting heretics. They believed they were purifying the soul of the world. McCarthyism, they weren't persecuting people. They were protecting democracy. The same pattern repeats over and over. Mass fear, moral justification, collective blindness. But why is this so irresistible to society? Because it's easier to belong to madness than to stand alone in sanity. You think you're strong enough to resist the pull. But imagine this. You're in a room with 100 people, and 99 of them are screaming the sky is green. You see, it's blue. But every voice, every authority, every friend, every stranger keeps telling you you're wrong, day after day, week after week. At some point, you'll start to doubt your own eyes, and that's the moment mass psychosis wins. Not through violence, not through war, but through exhaustion. So how do you stay sane in a world gone mad? First, you must reclaim your inner world. Mass psychosis thrives when your mind is constantly invaded by media, by propaganda, by outrage, by fear. So the first act of rebellion is to become selective with your attention. Guard your focus like a king guards his crown. You don't need to know everything that happens in the world. You need to know what's true, and what's good, and what's real. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Second, confront your shadow. People get swept into collective madness because they never face the darkness within themselves. When you repress your envy, your pride, your fear, it doesn't disappear, it leaks out. And when the crowd gives you permission to unleash it, you become part of the mob without even knowing it. Jung said it best. The man who does not confront his shadow becomes possessed by it. So ask yourself, what are you projecting onto others? Who are you scapegoating because you refuse to wrestle your own demons? Third, stay anchored in timeless wisdom. Mass psychosis is a storm, and storms pass. But you need anchors, deep roots that don't move when the wind screams. Philosophy, scripture, silence, stillness, these aren't luxuries. In an insane world, they're weapons, they're armor. Read books that have stood the test of time. Meditate on eternal truths, not trending narratives. As the world spins into hysteria, you must become still. Fourth, build a tribe of the sane. You can't stay grounded if you're surrounded by people who have lost their footing. Find the ones who refuse to conform to delusion. People who ask questions. People who seek truth, not comfort. People who will remind you who you are when the world tries to rewrite your identity. Iron sharpens iron. Sanity sharpens sanity. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowds when they became feverish. He didn't try to please them. He walked away to pray, to listen, to realign. Because he knew you can't heal the world if you've lost yourself in it. And finally, speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. Mass psychosis only survives when the sane stay silent. Every whisper of truth is like a crack in the illusion. You may not wake up the crowd, but you might awaken the one soul listening in the shadows, desperate for someone to say what they're afraid to admit. Truth is contagious, too. And yes, you will be mocked. You'll be called dangerous. You might even be hated. But don't forget this. History always vindicates those who stand against madness, the ones who hide Jews in their basements, the ones who print forbidden books, the ones who say, "No, I will not lie, I will not comply, I will not hate my brother to feel safe." Because in the end, the crowd always wakes up. The spell breaks, the fog lifts. And what will matter most is whether you were brave enough to remain awake when everyone else was dreaming. So ask yourself, will you be another voice in the madness? Or will you be the one who remembers the truth? The world will try to convince you that silence is peace, that going along is safety, that questioning is rebellion. But deep down, you know the truth. You were not born to blend in with delusion. You were not made to nod along while the world burns in illusion. You were created to see clearly, to feel deeply, to speak courageously. So if your soul is stirring, if something inside you is saying, "This isn't right," Listen to that voice. That is the last piece of you that the madness hasn't touched. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. This isn't just about surviving a mass psychosis. It's about waking up from it and becoming the voice that wakes others. So stay awake, stay rooted, and when the darkness screams, be the one who whispers light.